Good evening. I'd like to call to order the West Bend Community Memorial Library Board meeting for Tuesday, January 19th. If we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I would like to call for an approval of the agenda, but before I do that, I would like to say I'd like to amend the agenda so that after the approval of the consent agenda, we have a short introduction. We have a new board member, and we also have a new library director, and what I would like each of us to do is go around and introduce ourselves to each other. So I'd like to ask for an approval of the agenda with the change that I've stated. Jess and Karen, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. I'd like to call for a consent agenda approval of the library board meeting minutes for December 15th and also approval of the library expenditures for December 2020. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion again. I'll second again.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, for the introductions, I guess I will start. I'm Deb Bartnikowski, and I've been on the library board for 9 years, I think, and I think I've been president for 3 or 4. Time flies when you're having fun. So we'll go around this way and start with Jess.
I'm Jessie Tortomasi. Sorry, there we go. I teach at Badger, and this is my 3rd or 4th year on the board.
I'm Brett Berquist. I'm the District 3 Alderman and representative of the city on the board.
I guess it's me. I'm Steve Theory, the new director, and I had a great first day, and I'm a proud carrier of the West Bend Library card. So, and all the privileges that come with it.
Nice.
I am Brad Nye. I am the deputy director, so I work for this guy over here, and I have been with the library now coming up in just under 10 years.
I'm Cindy Warnier. I'm the secretary. I've been on the board for about 1.5 years.
I'm Karen Wacholtz. I've been on the board, I believe, around 8. Deb. I own a manufacturing business here in West Bend.
I'm Tim Harder. I am the West Bend School District representative on the board. I'm the director of IT and libraries for the school district, and I believe I'm almost on 6 years on the board.
Joanne, you want to?
Hi, everybody. I'm Joanne Klein. I've been on the board 9 years too, just a couple weeks, not as long as Deb. Welcome, Steve. But we met before. It'll be good to see you in person again.
Okay, and our new our new board member, Josh McCullen, will introduce himself.
All right, my name's Josh Mccutchen. I'm a resident of West Bend for the last 15 or so years. I have 3 daughters, 2 of which are old enough to enjoy the library and do. And I operate adult family homes for people with disabilities here in West Bend. So I've got 8 homes that I manage. And I'm welcome. Very happy to join you guys. So thank you.
Okay. Joseph isn't here. Not sure if it's the weather. I do have the financials. Any questions? I think everything looks pretty good. Let's see. I did question the building fund in red on the little box, but Joseph told me that it is offset by the actual building fund listed in the restricted. We haven't moved that money into the actual account that is paying for the building, so that's why that's sitting there. There was a $250 donation, but it was anonymous. So thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous. And any questions? I guess the only observation that I have is it looks like our operating expense fund for the end of the year, we're going to be, it looks like there's close to 190,000. I know there will be some charges coming in through.
Yeah, that's an unadjusted amount yet. I mean, we still have some 2020 numbers coming in yet. I don't know for how long. And then, of course, there's the audit at the end of first quarter, so we really won't have the exact numbers or final until probably April or so.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll move on to number 5B, fund balance report from December. And basically what that was is we had the county capital offset that's listed in the fund balance. By listing it the way it's listed, it looks like it appears in our current budget dollar amounts. We had discussed moving it into a fund balance because this is technically restricted dollars that can only be used as a capital offset, and that capital offset has to be used in conjunction with the county match. You know, the city has to match this because this is county money, and in order for us to use it, we need a match of city money. So we wanted to just move it into like a fund balance or list it as restricted so that it doesn't appear in the subtotal. Reason being, if it appears in the subtotal, the city looks at that dollar amount and says, this is how much money you still have to spend, and that's not the case. It is restricted money. Joseph, got anything to add?
Nope, that sums it up.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to move the county capital offset payments of $170,374 into a restricted fund balance.
Deb, before you do that, remember, that's under new business as well,
Oh, is it?
that request, the offset.
Okay. All right, well, we can do it now or we can wait. We can wait. I'll follow the agenda. It's one of those days. It's been a rough day. Okay. I didn't know why we had the fund balance report under there, though. Was there any other reason? Normally, we don't have two listed. Do we?
We do, yeah.
All right. All right, moving on. Public comment. Our typical public comment? All right. Library Director's Report. Brad?
So what you can see is from the stats from 2020, these are more or less the finals. I didn't really get much of a chance to look against 2019 under the totals, but I can say that between the 2019 overall circulations and the 2020 overall circulations, we were down only about 25% between 2019 and 2020, which, considering all the things that happened in 2020, that's not as bad as I was originally forecasting in my own mind, but it's roughly 25% down. The year before, in 2019, I want to say that the number was 459,000 and change, something like that. So otherwise, these are the numbers, many of which will show up on the annual report because they will be the ones we've been tallying all year long. So don't be surprised if you see these on the annual report, which you will again next month.
Okay. Any questions for Brad? If not, we can move on to the Library Board President's Report. The only thing I want to bring up on this, and we'll talk about it in old business is, we had talked about having Monarch do our email addresses, and Tim has been graciously working with Ryan from Monarch. So do you have?
Yeah, so the question when we talked about this originally was, what is the contract? What is the stipulation? They have no contract, and they have no, in essence, rules of who can access it. So I have some additional questions of who can actually go there and request our emails open records. If they are the record holder for us, that typically is where you would go. So we have to clarify that, and we will get that in writing before we would ever make that switch to utilize their email addresses at that point in time.
Okay,
So I hope to provide them some sort of an update with some additional questions this week yet, so.
okay. It's not, it's not that much of a priority.
And
We all have our emails, but
yeah.
I think from
I think we're asking questions that will help the system look at this in a different way. If somebody were to walk in and say, I'd like all of our email addresses, what does that look like where we're currently the record holders individually of our emails here? So I think we just want to have that in writing in some process so that if somebody were to come to us and say, I would like all the emails for Tim and Deb on the library board pertaining to XYZ topic, we would have a process that we would outline here for that request of those emails to be released. So that's what I'd like to clarify with them and develop for us.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim, for being so knowledgeable. Any questions? Okay. We'll move on to number 9, old business, Monarch Library System update.
I don't have a whole lot to say. I've got a smattering of notes here that I was not able to transcribe before the meeting, so I'm going to have to guess at what I wrote here. But what's happening is the old magazines, online magazines, are going over to Overdrive, and the old subscription ends at the end of this month. And last week, we had to make a decision if we wanted to go in with the Overdrive magazines, and there's a whole lot of chatter back and forth, but there are multiple systems that are looking at this, and depending on how many go in and which ones go in, ultimately, no matter what happens, we will be under what has been budgeted for this year, as I understand it. So there was a decision made that the system could go ahead and say we would be looking at the Overdrive magazine system for starting February 1. They capped it at $20,000. The system said they would take on any overage beyond what we the libraries have already budgeted for. So there is a little bit of wiggle room here. They've already guaranteed us an extra $2,000 because 18 was the original. They said ask for 20. They said they would cover that, and then there was another stipulation that said the system would cover any overages. So for purposes of our budgeting process, there should be no change for us. That might change next year, but for right now, that's where we're at. So I guess we're going forward with that.
And the next Monarch board meeting won't be until like the second week in February. So they do every other month board meetings, so nothing has come out of that. Old business, any questions on Monarch? Number 9B, basement renovation update.
Deb had asked me to make a statement about that, and I had this really great statement from Cindy from Parks and Rec, and unfortunately it is not in front of me tonight, as it's sitting in my office right now. So I'm going to wing it, just based on the fact that Steve and I took a quick tour this morning of the basement area. They are currently working on the HVAC system further. That is probably the single biggest item. They are still running conduit. They've got several of our tiles out in the children's area, so they're working in that area. And then they're working downstairs quite a bit. So they're putting it all together, trying to watch these raceways and all that's kind of interesting. The way I understood it originally, the opening would have been next week, but there seems to be a delay in the special flooring that they are going to have, I think, in the dance studio. I don't think that'll be installed until next week. I got a message from Nick Lemke on this, and so stay tuned on that. There's nothing more I know at this point. And if that doesn't come in next week, it could get delayed further. So right now, the opening theoretically and I don't really want to say the exact opening because I don't know, but would be late next week, maybe. But there are a few things left to do. They got some ceiling tile left to put in. The electrical has to be put in because it's very hard to walk around there because most of the lights are scattered here and forth. But and a few things in the bathrooms. The bathrooms are mostly done. So it's coming along. It's coming along. It should be interesting when it's done.
Okay. We'll take a tour when it's done.
I could take that under consideration, sure.
Brad, can I ask a follow-up question? Correct me if I'm wrong, and for anybody who's watching, but the Park and Rec is the one managing this project, so they have to deal with permit, occupancy permit, all of that in that space. We're not handling that, so they will have that before we open up to the public. We don't have any role in that portion of this?
To the best of my knowledge, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to number 10, new business, library close dates 2021.
Okay, so before you are the official close dates that the city will follow in the year 2021. So starting with Friday, January 1, all the way through Saturday, January 1 of 2022, that's all been set by the city. And this would be the one that, these would be the dates that you as a board would say yay or nay to for us to also follow. Traditionally, we have always followed the city's lead on this sort of thing. But then you will see below that something else. One of the things that, regarding that fact where we say we follow what the city does, the city has 2 other days in which this city hall is closed, but the library is not. And those are specifically Good Friday, which this year will be Friday, April 2nd, 2021, and also the day after Thanksgiving, which is Friday, November 26, 2021. And you will also see that we have our current special holiday closings policy, which looks at Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, etc. It does not reflect anything about the Good Friday holiday or the day after Thanksgiving holiday. And I guess the question to this board is, do you want to still follow what we have been doing, or would you consider following exactly what the city does as far as close dates? Now, the caveat is this. One thing is this special holiday closings policy would have to be amended in some way to reflect any of these changes. But you will notice with the closings policy, we say that if something falls on a Friday or a Monday, then that Saturday would also be closed. So if you would go with the Good Friday holiday and the day after Thanksgiving holiday, then by this edict, you would also be saying that April 3, which is Saturday, the day after Good Friday, would be closed, and then the day after Thanksgiving, which is a Saturday, it would also be closed. So those would be the things to consider. It's something for your consideration. You don't have to, but we just thought we'd bring it up because we noticed the discrepancy based on what we've been seeing in the past.
Now, do we give the employees like a floating holiday for Good Friday?
Correct. For the Good Friday holiday and the day after Thanksgiving holiday, they do become floating holidays for the employees. So it's not as if they lose it completely or anything like that. So it is a floating holiday. And some like that, so.
The other thing I probably should have asked is, and this is not a good year to ask, but in a normal year, I would be interested in knowing what the attendance was on Good Friday, the number of people, and also the Friday after Thanksgiving. Do you have any recollection of what this Friday after Thanksgiving was? No.
Not really. No, I didn't even think to look at it at the time. Actually, you bring up a good point, Deb. Perhaps this is what I would recommend. I would recommend at this point, because 2020 was all over the place, We're starting out in 2021. I would recommend, ask the board to motion and make a motion for the official library close dates as they're set up through New Year's Day of January 1, 2022, and perhaps look at these other dates into next year might be the best thing to do, because it'll give us time then to look at the policy. To make this change now, the first one effective would be Good Friday, and upon reflection, perhaps we should just hold off on that completely and really think about it ahead of time. And we can also get the data too for these 2 days.
I think that's a good idea. Does anyone have any input? Okay. And basically, if you look at this, the original policy was adopted in 2011. I think that was before all of our time. That was 10 years ago. So it's something good we need to look at, but I think for this year, going forward, we should just go with the schedule that you have put out.
I just want to point out that what really started this is if you look at the 4th of July holiday, that's what really started this whole thing. The July 4th holiday by the city standards is going to be Monday the 5th, okay? And so, because it's on the 4th, is on a Sunday this year. Excuse me. The special holiday closings does not make a provision for the library to be closed on the previous Saturday. So if we go with this, we would be open on Saturday, July 3, but closed on Monday, July 5. So just so you're aware, that's the one difference. Okay.
Any comments?
So then I would just need you guys to approve that first set there from January 1, 2021 through January 1, 2022, if you don't mind. And then I can set this up with the people at the system so they know when to close out on the ILS.
And basically, I do know that the policy that isn't written, we normally follow what the city follows, because the larger portion of our budget is from the city. So that's why we stay with July 5th as the day. That we would be off on July 5th because the city is celebrating it on Monday. Comments? If not, I'll take a motion to approve. And if we don't approve, don't they get the holidays?
I'll make a motion to approve the library closure dates from, with the standard holidays, ignoring for now the 3 subcategories on the bottom.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. Go for it. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries. Now we can talk about the county capital offset. Going back to what I had asked. Moving that into a restricted fund. Now, you'd have to see if Carrie can do something, because does this report basically, or do you fill this in?
She does it.
She fills it in? Okay.
I think we'd probably just have to send it to the city for the city to approve.
Just to say we voted on moving that into the fund balance
and then
as
I
a
assume
restricted
the
fund?
council would have to vote as well to approve it. Because they had to approve all of the building fund monies being transferred.
That's because we had both the parks and us.
Joseph, is this our fund balance?
Yeah.
So we're just designating it so we can't use it for anything else? I don't believe the city would have to approve that. In the case of the Parks and Rec, we were giving the city that money to pay the bill, just like the Parks and Rec was doing. So I think the ask is we're just designating it, and then we tell the city that it's in this sub-restricted account.
Because we
'Cause
don't
it's our
have to
fund
have,
balance.
we do not have to have the common council approve when we move the end-of-year fund balances into our fund balances. So
Right.
that would be very similar.
Okay.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion to move the county capital offset fund from the cash investments to a restricted account.
And again, explain, when you send the information to Carrie, you can put the little explanation that this is money that really nobody can touch
Right.
until the city would offset it, some of it.
Which restricted fund are we going to put this in?
It's going to be in the same
Yeah, it's gonna
category,
stay
but
there.
it's going to just move over and look like a fund balance as opposed to a
I wasn't sure where it was going.
Yeah.
Is it going down or is it going lateral? Okay. thank you.
lateral. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Anyone have any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Motion carries. CD authorization. Joseph.
So right now Doug is the only person technically authorized on the CD account. I was originally going to do it last year, but then they wanted to do a credit check, which I wanted to hold off on because I was refinancing my house. So now going forward, we can go ahead and I will reapply for that. I think initially we were talking about Deb and I both being on there.
We were, and then I wanted to discuss that with the board. I really personally think it should be the treasurer and the director, and the reason being, normally, board members can change much more rapidly than we get directors changing. So it doesn't matter to me. I can have my name put on it as president, but then if I'm not elected president, in the future, we'd have to change it. It is the same thing with Joseph, though, if he's not elected treasurer. So I guess I'm looking from a long-term standpoint, does it make more sense to have a library employee, like the director, on that? It's not, we can't touch this fund. It is a CD that's locked in for 6 years or something,
Yeah,
and that, but I don't know, what does the board think?
Joseph, is the authorization really to deal with that account in any way, shape, or form?
Well,
And withdrawal, if we get
It's-
to that point of 6 years and withdrawal and add to it if we want to roll, or what does
Yes.
that authorization all entail?
well, so technically I can't go in and talk to them about the account. They were pretty good with it last time when I was doing it, and they actually removed the old treasurer while I was discussing it with them, even though I wasn't technically authorized on the account. But that's because I brought a list of the current board members, and he wasn't on it, so they took him off. But it does say it's going to expire in 2022, so that's only like a year away at this point, like a year and a half. So, I mean, we do need to get on it somewhat quickly, but it's not like it needs to be today.
So if we name two, do we have to have authorization from both those people to withdraw money or move that money at
I
that
would
point?
doubt it. Because I doubt that we would need both people to sign off on something.
I don't know, it's probably a good point, though, because technically, we are saying it's a restricted fund. The bank is considering it a fund that we get a larger percentage because we lock it in for so long. But I don't think anybody's ever asked, what if somebody went in to try and close it out?
Yeah.
I think we need a little more investigation on that.
So-
But I do think we need to,
So I'll make a motion, but if you don't mind, I'm going to add to it. So I so move to change the CD authorization to Joseph at this point in time, along with the fact that it is brought back. Can we have two signatures on there and require two signatures for withdrawal or deposit of that money in some way, shape, or form? I think that's our better fiscal practice.
I can definitely make sure to ask when I go in.
okay, we have a motion, and I think we need to have the motion approved at least to get Joseph on it, because right now, nobody on the board has authority. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do think most accounts would allow
for an addendum to be made to have it be like a dual signature, dual party decision. I'm not quite sure with the CD, that might be a different situation, but most accounts will, you can do that, so.
Well, just as an FYI, the bank will make changes, but in order for them to do it, it has to be in the official board minutes.
Right.
That's what gives them the authorization and stuff, so,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. Thank you, and that's probably a very good point that we could do like a add-on. Okay, any other discussion? We have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, new business, library board meetings at the West Bend School District. The reason this is on here is our February meeting is going to be on the 16th of February, which is an election day, and we normally would have our meetings in the library, and it wouldn't be a problem, even though it was an election day. But because of COVID and the spreading around, we would have it here, and they've asked us not to do that. So we're looking for utilizing the building, the school district building for next board meeting. In addition, Tim has graciously offered to allow us to hold that meeting at the school district building until COVID has been lifted and we can go back to the library. So I'm asking the board, what do they want to do? This is your decision.
Just so you know, the February 16 one has to be.
Yeah, the
that
16th
one
has to be.
regardless, so.
Right. It's like pulling teeth.
Should be fine, as long as we can get the audio and video done, right?
And that would be Tom
So-
coming and bringing it like.
Okay.
Yeah,
you know,
we would run just like, I talked to Tom actually briefly after our board meeting the other day. We would run like we would at the library, or they'd come in and tape it and then put it up there. So there would be no microphones. The only microphones would be what Tom put. So think of our days back at the library around the table and 2 microphones that he just picks up as recording. We would have none of this there. We would just set up, we'd use the same room more than likely that we used for interviews, and we just create the big circle in there at that point in time.
There would be no capabilities for like Joanne to
no,
we
you
can
do
join us?
Zoom.
We can do Zoom. It'll just look a little bit different in how they record it. So no different than we did in the interview process. I had somebody up on Zoom and they would join on the TV. You just won't have 3 different TVs
Got it.
in this
Okay.
setup. So yeah.
Well, we probably should break it into 2 motions. One, the motion to say we will hold our next meeting at the school district because of the election. So if I could have a motion for that.
Can I add one thing? The only caveat would be is if we were to have a special board meeting or a committee meeting that would be used in that room. Typically evenings are school board things are typically a Monday evening. And so Tuesdays are not, and the rest of the week are not as much, but if we would need it, we would then move to a different school district building. That could be our library at the high school, it could be a variety of other places, but we would always have a space to locate us if we weren't meeting here.
Is that too confusing, Brad?
I don't think so. I'd have to talk to the clerk to find out if we had to make a last-minute adjustment, because the way you set up the agendas is I have to pick where the meeting place is, and then it's slotted onto the agenda template. So if we made a last-minute decision, I'm not exactly sure how that would pan out, because that's one thing I can't really edit on the fly. And once it's published, I can't do anything
Yeah.
either.
You would have to do I've had to do this once in my 7 years as an administrator over there. You'd have to do an amended agenda for the location. We had to do that once in spring due to COVID. And we would know in advance. Often we know when we're having our special board meetings, things like that. We also have a variety of other places we can meet too as a board. I would get them on our calendar there. I'm just thinking more in advance of if all of a sudden we knew there would be something coming up that month, we may have to meet at a different location. But worst case scenario, you'd have an amended agenda for just the location. But I think we can predict most of that ahead of time that we wouldn't have that issue at all.
I think if I think a 2-week lead time, if there was a change, that'd be enough time for us to make adjustments before we even publish. I think
Yeah,
2 weeks would be pretty good.
I think the hard part's going to be is all of a sudden if we have to have a special meeting related to something, that's the part that we just don't. We are currently having our board meetings up at the high school just for space, just like we are having our meetings here. But I think we could figure that out. I've had to do the 24-hour amended location if you have to, and it's just basically adjusting it, putting amended on it or whatever the city's policy, and then resending that out. But I don't foresee a lot of that based upon at least through the rest of the school year at this point in time.
So what is the board's preference? I mean,
Well, first, we should make a motion to move the 16th to the
Sure.
ESC. So I'll make a motion for that.
okay. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and second to move our February 16th meeting to the West Bend School District building. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And now we can discuss if we want to move it or just leave it here, I mean, I'm hoping we can get back to the library soon. That's what I'm hoping. If there's no discussion, we can just leave it here.
I guess not that I'd be opposed to moving it, but I don't know if there'd be any real added benefit to moving it.
Okay.
So.
I'm biased because I literally walk right next door. So it's not a big deal for me, but that's why, I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. And the reality is if this space is not available, we have the ability to make those
Okay,
board meeting
yeah.
shifts at any point
All
in
right.
time. So if all of a sudden we get to March and there's a similar issue, or the council has to have a meeting or something like that, we can always utilize that as a backup space at this point.
Okay, righty. We'll just tuck that in our little pocket. Next meeting, February 16th, at the West Bend School District. Okay. Do we have any tasks? I don't think so.
Oh, I've got tasks.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, you caught those, okay.
So, Tim, you are going to be emailing Monarch again for those clarifying questions. Tour of the basement when it's done. I don't know who would be in charge of that. Look at that. Look at that. Mm-hmm.
Well, they're right next to you the whole time.
Nice.
If we do a tour of the basement, remember, it would be considered a meeting if all of us go at the same time. So, oh, yes.
You do. You can. You just post it as that and just say that there'd be no official business.
Oh, okay.
Done.
So you could just post it at like a walk through the
Yep.
basement?
You do as a tour of the new space with no official business being completed or something. The city will, I'm sure, can help phrase that a little bit.
Something new for all of us. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
And then, Joseph, you are going to reapply to have access for that CD at the bank, and you are also going to send information to Carrie about the restricted account.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure, Joseph, if they need the official approved meeting minutes that'll say that we've done this, or if, when the meeting minutes come out, Cindy, the template, for review, because Cindy usually gets the meeting minutes out sooner. Once they come to you, get a copy to Joseph, so then he can put that on his schedule, because right now you're starting to get into your busy season, so you're going to have to schedule. Okay. If nothing else, we are adjourned. It's 7:10. Thank you all.